You're listening to a CNA podcast.
In recent weeks, a new regional flashpoint has emerged along the high plateaus and barren mountains of Kashmir and the international border between India and Pakistan. As both nations engaged in a brief spate of more traditional warfare, one of the weapons of the conflict that concerned many became water. The threat to control it, deny it. Today we look at water as a powerful resource and its role in a tussle between nuclear powers. Hello and welcome to Climate Conversations. I'm Jack Board. Hello to Liling Tan, partner in podcast. How's it going?
Partner in climate. Okay, that didn't go very well. Partner in...
Oh my God.
Partner in climate. Partner in crime, get it? Anyway.
I got it the first time.
Yeah, I'm good. Considering all the bad news that's been happening, I'm actually holding up okay. And you're looking well? You're good?
Thank you. Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Now, serious talk. You've been leading a lot of CNA's coverage on this India-Pakistan situation, and we'll get into the root tensions around the Indus River. But how's that story been developing from your place in the newsroom?
Well, things have stabilized somewhat relative to what happened in late April to early this month. But that Indus Water Treaty you're talking about, that's still problematic, right? It really makes you think about the potential of weaponizing water. And there's so many ways to do it in times of conflict and warfare, as we've seen throughout history. Now, of course, there are ways to target water infrastructure, reservoirs, and other sources. You can induce floods, block access, or contaminate water supply. You can even damage habitats in rivers and ocean life to cut off food supply.
Interesting to see that you've thought about all the ways of weaponizing water. But yeah, all of this is pretty ugly. But let's lighten the mood somewhat and do our little quiz as we like to do every week. Okay, it's river themed, Liling. Can you tell me which river, this is geography, this is going back to your high school days maybe of learning geography in class. Can you tell me which river carries the most water internationally? So the volume of water from one country to another country. And we know that so many major rivers are transboundary. The Indus is one of them that we'll talk about. See how you go with that one.
Okay, so I can think of three possibilities. The River Nile, that traverses several countries.
Yes.
The Amazon as well, and also the Danube, I believe, might be one of them.
Good start. You've narrowed it down. Have you narrowed it down correctly? Let's see. We'll come back with the answer at the end. Now for our main story this week. The Indus River is born in Tibet, high in the Himalayas, before it snakes its way more than 3,000 kilometres through the disputed lands of Kashmir, through Pakistan, and finally empties out into the Arabian Sea. It's a river that shapes landscapes, from glacial mountaintops to some of the driest valleys in the world, to temperate forests and fertile farming lands. But a terrorist attack in the North Indian town of Pahalgam last month put the Indus at the centre of a simmering conflict between India and Pakistan, neighbours who share the flow of the river. Liling, okay, talk us through the water treaty that existed until not very long ago, well, it still does exist, and how it's being used as leverage during this political tumult.
Okay, the two countries had this water sharing treaty that was signed back in 1960. Now, it effectively governs water access for about 300 million people. But following that terrorist attack in Pahalgam, late April, India suspended the treaty. Pakistan then labelled it an act of war. Now, India has also been trying to modify the terms of this treaty for some time before this latest escalation, and has also been actively constructing more hydropower infrastructure on the river in its territory. Now, this has raised concerns that the flow of water to Pakistan could be greatly affected in the future. This matters a lot, Jack, because about 80% of Pakistan's water supply comes from the Indus River.
Yeah, so significant. And we see that water use is being conflated here with issues of security, of military action, and identity as well. It's a powerful leverage tool, and increasingly water here is not being treated as a shared resource. Now, we are focusing on the situation in India and Pakistan as it's top of the news agenda right now, but this does speak to a larger global issue around water security. I know I've written countless articles with water at the heart of them: who controls it, who doesn't have enough, who ends up with too much of it. Water is a precious commodity, and conflict centered around its use is expected to only increase in this era of fast onset climate change. Now, late last year, we also focused on a new report that found that half of the world's food production was at risk, and huge chunks of national GDPs too, due to what is an ongoing global water crisis.
For this episode, we spoke with someone who has a bird's eye view of the global water crisis, as well as insights into some of the most vulnerable places on Earth facing water shortages. He is J. Carl Ganter, journalist, podcaster, and managing director of Circle of Blue, which does frontline reporting, research, as well as analysis on water resource issues and the impact on food and energy.
It's at the core of energy security.
That's
you
right.
need water for energy to move and treat water. Mm-hmm. It's also, of course, key for food security. Depending on where you are in Asia or around the world, the water footprint of growing food, how much water is consumed to grow food, is between 70 to 90% of the water that we use as humans, right, in our system.
So Carl and I actually met up at Ecosperity Week here in Singapore at the plush and plenty Marina Bay Sands. You've been there, you know what it's like. In a setting like this, it's easy to forget that there are places in the world with water shortages that's costing lives and livelihoods. And I asked him how he gets people with means to care enough about what's happening elsewhere to actually act, and how to bridge this disconnect.
Water can be a real equalizer. The story of farmers in India whose wells are going dry, yes, they're still growing their crops and still taking them to market, but using, where there's a will, there's a way, and water finds a way, whether it's clean or not. And so using raw sewage to grow their crops, and then using clean water to rinse off the smell before they take it to market, and not eating themselves. Now, that's a pretty powerful story. So I told that story at a World Economic Forum event in Delhi during a breakfast session of regional and national corporate leaders. And when you make these stories visceral and hyper-local, and you start to ask the question, where does my food come from? Then it starts to get real. The key to really changing course on anything is when you tell a story or you communicate the story and the situation, you need to do it in a way that your audience sees themselves in the picture. And if that audience is a group of CEOs in the room and they're about food security and they're not worried about water security, well, you can make them worry about water security.
J. Carl Ganter also drove home the point that this isn't just a crisis affecting people far away on the front lines of climate change.
We're all on the front lines, and it's not a 2030 issue. It's not a 2050 issue. It is a now issue. We have multiple cities that are facing, quote, day zero, when they could run out of water. That includes Mexico City, which almost ran out of water last summer. That includes Johannesburg. That includes Bogota, Bangalore. Some of our most vibrant cities in the world right now are on the precipice of running out of water. So this is an actual forcing moment.
The upside is that he thinks this is the moment to be both afraid and hopeful.
This is a moment that's accelerating. Are we ready for it? We'll never be ready for it, but are we willing to act with the speed and the nimbleness and the dexterity and the innovation? It's like we're flying a little airplane through a storm, and we have to trust our instruments. We have to keep flying. We can't just stop, right? And we have to be willing to actually take risks and innovate and test and constantly course correct. Now, what also keeps me up at night is on the front lines, I've had the honor of meeting so many people who are living this every day, whether it's a family in the desert in Jaisalmer, near Jaisalmer, India, near the Pakistan border, where the children walk for water in the morning through the heat of the desert. And I've walked with them, and I see the fear And I also see the fortitude in these, young women as they're going to get water. These are girls who are, maybe 10 to 12 to 13 years old.
Just girls?
Just girls going to get water. The girls get mostly around the world. So it is a gender issue also. Mm-hmm. But I see there's still hope in their eyes.
And that was Jay Carganta, Managing Director of Circle of Blue.
Nicely done, Liling. Good to see you out there with your recorder, finding out all the big issues that we like to talk about here. Now, picking up off of that, a big question is why climate change is making water such a critical topic. So it's obvious, but there are a few factors going on that I think are worth speaking about. And looking at the case of the Indus and many other major rivers in our region, what they have in common is that they're being fed by glaciers.
As many rivers are, Jack, like the Nile and the Yangtze and the Danube, but not the Amazon.
The Nile fed from glaciers.
Part of it is, partially, yeah.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. So we know that glaciers are melting faster than ever. And while for now, that actually means there could be more water in our rivers, it's a short-term scenario. And eventually there could be dramatic disruptions to river flow. So these high-altitude regions are some of the fastest warming on the planet. That's impacting snowfall, and then also the time of year that water ends up flowing downriver.
Inconsistent rain in general, plus extreme precipitation events and monsoon patterns that are shifting in different ways around the world are also factors as well that are putting pressure on our water resources, right?
Yeah.
And we're not yet adapting to these new realities of water shortages yet. And that's not throwing into the mix all of the politics and mistrust around the resource in areas where it is scarce.
Yep. Politics is a big part of a lot of the issues around river. River management, water access. And there are other really important river treaties in the region that we should be keeping our eye on as well. One, for example, is India's water sharing treaty with Bangladesh for the Ganges River, which expires next year.
That's right. Eyes on that too.
Okay, back to our quiz question. Can you tell me which river carries the most water internationally? Who's got the most excess baggage in terms of rivers?
I'm going to go with the Nile, the River Nile. Yeah.
Now, the ancient Nile flowing through Egypt, Sudan, South Sudan, Ethiopia, I'm going to say, is incorrect. I'm afraid.
Oh, let's look
at
that.
Correct.
Look this up. I'm pretty. Yeah. Okay.
No,
you're going to say the Danube.
No,
that's
it's the Amazon.
No?
It's the Amazon.
Well, I guess you're talking about volume of water flow.
It's volume of water.
Right?
Yeah. And it's an international river that flows from Peru into Brazil, and thus making it the answer this week. Okay, that's all for this episode of Climate Conversations. Thank you for joining us. We'll be back next week.
Catch you again next Thursday. I am Liling Tan. Talk to you soon.
And I'm Jack Board. Thanks as always to the team that put together this podcast. Saye Win, Tiffany Ang, Janaini Jahari, and Crispina Roberts.